So, but Vinny like could totally confuse me on the whole thing because I thought it was Kaz Daughtry that got the deal done.
And also someone who's not here right now, I need to thank Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry. I mean, he was very instrumental in getting this done.
Within only weeks of becoming the deputy mayor, he learned arbitration, he learned contract law, he learned how to negotiate with contracts, he learned the intricacies of what was going on in the SBA contract. So he did all that in weeks. So miracle. But then I come to find out that it actually wasn't Kaz Daughtry and it was Sid Rosenberg. Sid Rosenberg settled the SBA contract. You didn't hear it from me. You're going to hear it from Vinny Vallalong. Sid Rosenberg settled the SBA contract. Here we go.
And he tells the whole story. And he's right. He's like, Sid, we got cops who live in Rockland County, live on Long Island. You wear the 12-hour shift. That's an 18-hour day. It's not even safe for the state troopers. I say, Vin, how can I help you? So last you and I spoke, you wanted to get the deal done. There was this major issue in the way, and now the deal is done. So I can only imagine that issue is no longer in the way.
I didn't realize that you were so much of a big-time guy. Obviously, you are. Because this deal got done.
Are you really giving me some of the credit for this?
Absolutely.
Really?
I think everybody deserves credit for this.
Especially you guys. Come on.
Listen, we were fighting for this for 2 years, and we stood our ground and we dug in. And this was about 1,275 members that were being left behind. And our job as being union leaders, and I give praise to my board, I give praise to my vice president, everybody that was involved in this. There was a lot of moving parts. You were one of them.
Thank you.
And you truly were a part of a historic contract because for the first time ever, we have every single sergeant at top pay because of this contract.
It was historic. It was historic. It was a historic contract, and Sid Rosenberg got it done. You heard it here. It wasn't you, Kaz. It wasn't you. At City Hall, it was you. When he got to WABC, it was Sid.
Well, anyone notice how Vinny kind of like glossed over the 12-hour tours there?
Yep.
Sid even mentions it that last time you were here, you mentioned the 12-hour tours being a hazard. Well, what happened? When you see when I see so those of you paying attention, there's the sergeants are now they're basically testing out. They have a pilot program testing out the 12-hour tours, right? When I see this happening, you have to wonder where the principles are here, okay? Because weeks ago, Vinny was talking about how the 12-hour shifts are physically and mentally taxing, and how there are studies that show that 12-hour tours are hazardous and problematic, right? But apparently, those 12-hour tours aren't problematic no more, right? So I gotta wonder what backdoor deals were made, like John noted before, and Eric noted, what backdoor deals were made here that now the 12-hour shifts are being beta tested.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, there's no doubt about it that these guys flip-flop in a moment's notice. Now, everyone gets credit for this contract. Now, to me, it's wild how we're just going to acknowledge everybody because we want public press. Again, and that was absolutely a great point. The 12-hour tours was a major obstacle for the sergeants. I saw a lot of opposition when it came to the 12-hour tours. I received a lot of feedback through text. People were not happy about it. But that was completely glossed over. Well, and I don't think this is – again, I'm happy for the cops who are sergeants, and there's some closure in this, but I don't think this is a win. The gap between top pay sergeant and top pay cop is $4,000. And after taxes, that's not much. And yet, I think that the gap between a detective and a cop is $8,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marlon. You were a detective. I think it's $8,000 in the first step, that gap to a top pay cop. So to me, this is absolutely not a win at all. Again, and they're getting yesterday's dollar today. They lost out in that window of investing. I mean, back in December, crypto had went from, especially Bitcoin, went from 63,000 to its high of 106,000. So anyone could have invested their money into crypto into that time and made some money. But they lost out on that opportunity. If they're tier 2, they lost the opportunity of 50% additional. They lost the opportunity of ITHP, which is increased take-home pay, the waiver. They lost putting more money in their 401k, 457 real estate deals. this retro is not a good idea. This idea of always being behind the 8 ball and always getting retro these contracts is terrible. It's terrible economics. But again, we're getting advice from people that have no idea what they're doing. And I feel sorry that, I think I've said in a prior podcast, it really doesn't matter if they get 12-hour tours or not, or 15-hour tours in their contract. It really doesn't, because they're so shorthanded right now. The staffing crisis affects them no matter what. That's the major problem. Why isn't Vinny saying that, hey, the problem is we don't have enough people. They're exhausted. They burn the candle at both ends. But hey, the answer to everything we hear from these unions is they're getting paid. That's the only thing I see that they touch their fingers on. They're one-dimensional, and it only comes to contracts.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was just laughing after the whole contract thing broke, after they do the press conference, because the SBA was putting out all this thing thanking Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Kaz Daughtry, and people like, you guys got to give him props now. I'm telling you, it was him. He did it. He got it across the line. And I'm like, what did he do that he got it across the line? I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I believe that Kaz got the SBA contract settled. Like, I believe that Jessica Tisch cleaned up corruption in the NYPD. And
see, John, you don't get it.
I was like, if you believe that, I got something to sell you, brother. I'm sorry, I'm not there with you. Let me know exactly what he did. I'd like, let's like, what part of the negotiation was he crucial in getting done, and who did he reach out to, and how did that ultimately get done? Like, what did it look like? How did he do it? But cops, honestly, a bunch of morons. All he is. They said it. He said it at the press conference. Like, so it must be true. It must be true. And Marlon put out a post like after we, because he was the SBA president. He was kissing Adam's ass. Oh, I knew you were gonna get it done. You've been so great with us. And Marlon had put out a post, and he's like, it's almost as if this guy, this mayor, didn't force almost all of his members to put something in their body that they didn't want, terminate some of his members, force them to resign, force them to retire. It's almost as if that never happened. So it must just be that we're a bunch of wackos, Marlon. That's all it is. That's probably why Vinny also blocked us on social media, right? That's why the SBA, we can't look at the SBA post.
I'm blocked.
I'm getting pinky rings, Mo. That's it. I'm going to get a big pinky ring.
But John, you don't get it, because Kaz Daughtry and the Dream Team, they've done more for the cops than the prior administration. These cops getting all this overtime. They're making money. They're getting good pensions. I mean, that's what I'm told. That's the feedback I'm getting. Eric Adams, he's good for the police. And I love the fact that Vinny Valwong said in his speech that Eric Adams, I've always been a fan of you. I highly doubt that. I'm sure before Eric Adams was mayor, you were probably trashing him just like the rest of the upper echelon. Man, if I would have recorded what some of the leadership of the NYPD was saying about Eric Adams and also the unions before he became mayor, I would have been a rich man. I wish I had recordings of what they were saying about him.
Yeah, to Eric's point, you've lost at least 30% due to inflation, and that was between 2020 and 2023. You've got 30% due to inflation, okay? And not just that, but like we said, you're on the road to getting 12-hour tours. So is this really a win when you think about it? I put out another post asking that same exact question, and I said, really, the real winners might actually be the guys who are about to retire, or the guys who retired, because they're walking out the door, and the guys who are there, you're going to be, again, you have a manpower shortage, and you're never going to see your family again. I'm sure in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be looking back at that money and thinking that money, which is going to be, by the way, taxed away, right? You're going to be looking at it like, man, I would rather see my family again than, Vinny just settle whatever backdoor deal they made, So again, I asked the question, did you really win here? Think about it.
Yeah, and if anybody should get credit for settling the SBA contract, Rob Lukash says that he'd like to thank the Finest Unfiltered too for their help and input in the SBA contract. Let's thank everybody involved. honestly, no one has done more to put pressure on not only the union and New York City and Eric Adams and everybody else in the Crumbs administration to settle the Sergeant Benevolent Association contract than the SBA. Then the Finest Unfiltered. We played a major role in that. So yeah, we're not thanking anybody. You guys are welcome. And that's the end of the day. And it still sucked. And the SBA president told you clear as day that vote for somebody else. So we'll be looking to see when those elections come up.
I got to focus, John. I really got to focus on that. I think the gap between top pay sergeant and top pay cop is insane. 4,000, divided over 26 paychecks a year is nothing. I mean, where's the win?
But I don't see, compared to when they were making more money. So that's where we're at. You know what I mean? All these things are thrown out of the window. So I don't blame everybody's like, oh, name the delegate. I don't remember the guy's name. I don't know his name. The guy that was saying that you can't fire someone without a department trial. I don't blame people for going on things of the past. They just don't realize that New York City has changed. Eric Adams is the most anti-labor mayor in New York City history, and he's took away worker protection and civil rights from New York City workers. And all of you guys cheered it on. And when this Christmas comes, you'll all be taking pictures with him again. So, screw you. You did it to yourself. I don't feel bad for any of us. Oh, he didn't get a department trial. All right, good. Neither did Marlon. Either did I.
Yeah. John, $4,000 over 26 paychecks, right? For our active retired members, anybody, if you're watching whatever law enforcement agency outside the country, the NYPD gets paid on a biweekly basis. So $4,000, the gap between top pay sergeant and top pay cop on a 26 paychecks is $153 a paycheck difference from the top pay sergeant to top pay cop. That's, to me, where's the win? Am I right, Marlon? I'm pretty sure detective is $8,000 more, $8K. Am I right?
I think it used to be. I'm not sure what it is because they had a contract in what year was it? 2023 maybe. So I'm not sure what it is now.
I think it was 2023. I think you're right, or 2022.
Yeah.
But either way, I don't. Again, you're right. I mean, listen. I guess it's a win when you're working as a sergeant and you're making less than a cop. And I guess the mirage that now you're winning. I mean, $153. I just feel it's $153.84 biweekly. That's insane. Well, all the responsibilities sergeants have.
Well, yeah, it's especially insane if you consider all the stuff sergeants are having to deal with now. Sergeants are dealing with the pressure from above and pressure from below. You're getting, like I've said before, I've been to a job where the young guys are just waiting around for the boss to get here. And I was getting annoyed myself because we never did that when I was on patrol. I never wanted a boss to get out his car. It's my job. Let me finish it and keep it moving, But it's different now. They expect the boss to show up and it's basically the boss handling the job. So now you got that pressure from below and you got pressure from the higher ups above telling to get to get the numbers. So for all the work they're going to have to do now to be getting paid, with that difference being 4,000, it's just ridiculous.
No, you're right. It shocked me. It's funny you say that, right? And it's the leadership, the way the job is designed. But it shocked me because I was a special operations lieutenant. But sometimes I would go respond to 911 calls if the lieutenant needed a break. Like, hey, take a break. I'll cover you for an hour, or whatever the case is. Give the guy a break. And I responded to some of these patrol jobs, and I was shocked. I was surprised. Like, you'd get there, and I'm like, what do you got? I'm like, well, this guy said this other guy, I'll punch him in the face. I'm like, okay. And so how come this guy's not in cuffs, and this guy you just still talk? Like, what's going on here? And they literally were waiting for you to make the decision. So the problem, though, is it the cops? Is it the leadership? So I think it's definitely the operating protocol of the job right now, the leadership, that they're hiring cops that are meek, timid, and docile. They're scared to make a decision. And the sergeants, they're told to go to all these jobs, that they have to go to these domestics. Honestly, it's impossible right now. That's why it's sad they're making $153. It's sad. If you want to be a good sergeant, it's impossible. There's no way you could actually do all the stuff that they're asking. They have to go to every job. They have to watch all these body cameras. They have to do these community visits. I don't even know how these sergeants do it right now. And then right now with the staffing crisis, from what I hear, they're mostly working as cops too. So it must be it just must be an epic fail out there.
Yeah. I think that must be the worst rank in the job right now, because like as a cop, you're getting.
It was always the worst.
It's true. It's true. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, a cop's getting pressure from above, but the sergeant, you're getting pressure from both ends. You know, it's like it's becoming politically expedient to just let the sergeant do everything. You know, to put everything on the sergeant, because you can't. I mean, you're not getting the competent people, and you don't have enough cops there. So now you're getting the boss to do more and to fill in for those inadequacies that you have in the job. And it's definitely, I think, the worst rank right now.
It's a tough rank, dude. You know, the motto for sergeants is the toughest job in the world. It is, bro. It literally is. Like, it's almost an impossible job if you do it properly. If you're a competent person, if you're a conscientious person, being a sergeant will drive you nuts. The sergeants that fare well, honestly, are the sergeants that don't give a shit. And honestly, I'm not gonna like the sergeants that stay the ones that they fare well because they don't give a shit. They're just like, whatever.
You're right.
Those guys, they could be a sergeant for the rest of their life. You're like, all right, dude. Like me, I was crazed. I was I did the desk like 2 or 3 times. I was a maniac. I was like, oh my God, I'm really a bad desk officer. I yelled at everybody, dude. I was yelling at the lieutenants. I was losing my shit. Like, I was like, too much, I was better on patrol. Just get me out there. I'll deal with the radio. I'll deal with the guys going on the jobs.
I got a question for you. I'm curious because I didn't do the desk much. I was fortunate. I got to say, I was blessed. I did anti-crime charge like pretty much right away. I never made all those stupid entries. Did you make all those stupid entries like patrol guide here or like the dumbest thing?
I never really did it. But the times I did it, I made entries that nobody ever seen in their life. They were like, "What the hell?"
I can say it.
Because I'm telling you, I was crazy because I'm telling you, it was hands down worst job and not be. I mean, it's a great job. It's a great learning leadership experience. I'm not knocking. I'm not saying don't become a sergeant. You definitely become a sergeant, right? Because you could take my worst day as a sergeant. Nobody told me what car to drive. Nobody really told me anything. You know what I mean? You're gonna have lieutenants that are idiots. Your CO is gonna bother you. End of the day, you're still the boss. You're making a lot of decisions, dude. You're making decisions that honestly people can't pull back from. So it's a great learning experience. But it's a rough job. It really is. It really is the toughest job in the NYPD. It always will be. And honestly, I say it all the time. You could get rid of captains. You could get rid of lieutenants. You can't get rid of sergeants. They really run the job. So shout out to all the sergeants out there.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, that's a great point. The sergeants have a hell of a job. I never cared administratively. Like, I'm not putting these dumb entries. I remember some of the other sergeants and lieutenants were laughing. Like, did you even fill out this book? I'm like, I'm not putting these stupid entries. Like, if I ever get a command discipline, I'll take one. This is ridiculous. Let's do real police work. Let's make sure that the precinct's safe. Let's make sure that the guys are in the cells, they're actually being checked. But these stupid entries, I mean, this thing is so outdated. But half those entries I never even made. Like, ridiculous. And then some of the sergeants, they were so meticulous. They would write every serial number for the tasers. I would put tasers on deck. They're all present. That's it. I'm not putting all those details.
Yeah. As desk sergeants, did you ever have problems when like the prior desk sergeant would like run out the door and like there would be like things they wouldn't let you know, and because I used to hear stories and I'm like, if I was the desk sergeant, bro, I'd be like angry at everybody,
Well, I think and the other thing is, but I think even as like a patrol supervisor, I would flip out on the desk when I would walk in. Because I would get the roll call and they'd be, I got seven hospitalized prisoners, 2 guys around NDP. I got 2 sectors. They're holding 15 jobs. Nobody's transported. They've been there from the night prior. I would lose my shit. I'd be like, wait. So you're telling me I have no sectors? That's what you're telling me. What'd you do all day? And like, you know, like I was like, I'm telling you, that was like I like going, I could go back into that mode in a second, like walking in and seeing just the pure incompetence or pure people that just don't care. And honestly, like I said, those guys will live longer. those guys had better careers. Like they just didn't give a shit, you know? And I kind of looked up, I still look up to people like that. I'm like, how doesn't this person care about anything that's happening around them? You know, and like, yeah, there was tons of that, dude. And it affects all the operations, not just when you're a patrol supervisor, not just when you know, because you'd walk in sometimes as a crime sergeant. We need you guys to do this. Like, you don't need my guys to do this. You need to be a sergeant and figure out what the hell you're doing. Or you need to be a lieutenant and figure out like what you're doing with your staff. You don't need my guys for that. You need your guys to do their job. I don't need to cover your guys getting me. No, you know, you need to figure that out. Yeah. So there was tons of brawls. And like that's the one thing you learn as a sergeant is like immediately you think you're going into this boys club. You're not going to no boys club. You're not going. Nobody's telling you anything. If that's the case, you're lucky. Because I'll tell you, when I got out there, I was like, oh wow. I'm like, wow, I'm really in charge of everything. Everyone doesn't want responsibility for anything that's happening on the radio, in the precinct, anything that's going on the street, and all of it falls on my shoulders. So I have to be the person to make the decision that when I go home at the end of the night, I don't care when my phone rings, who calls me, if it's the chief of department, if it's internal affairs, whoever it is, I made the decision that I'm willing to be on the stand and talk to about and tell anyone to their face, I did this because of X, Y, Z.
I think TC spot on here. TC, thank you for the comment. You're absolutely right. If you're incompetent, it's a blessing on the job. They expect nothing from you. If you are capable, you're screwed. That's damn right. I mean, seen my whole career. If you're competent, there's definitely more weight put on you. Yeah, building maintenance, brother. Yeah, and there were guys that were intentionally incompetent. Like there was I don't even want to name names, but there were a couple of guys that they were super intelligent off the job and they knew and they played dumb at work and they didn't have to do anything. I was like, these guys are brilliant, but I didn't want to do that. You know, I wanted to go out there and do my job, and you know, but for some of these guys, play dumb, and you know what? If they're I have to admit, I did it myself. I'm like, I need something done. Am I going to give it to this guy? Because I know it's not going to get done. I end up giving it to the guy who's competent. It's sad, but that's how the job works.
Yeah. The 10%, the competent 10% do the work of the 90%. You know, and like you break it down as something as simple as like you need to do a prisoner transport. The new desk sergeant for the new tour comes on and. You know, where the chains for the perps, you know? Now, you know, you have to go find out where the chains are, you know? It's how like the incompetency gets that those 10% has to make up for the inadequacies of the job and of the 90%.
Well, absolutely. You know, and that just like think about that when you're talking about the entries now too. You're talking about one of the entries is that you're going to make that the chains are there for the prisoners, right? Right. So those are one of the entries. Now, let's say you're lazy and you don't check, and you write that entry, and then later you have a prisoner transport. You don't put the chains on them, and the guy escapes. Guess who's going to hang for that? You, bro. You said the chains were there, dude. They're not there. Like, don't do that. You know, no, I do this, call the quartermaster section. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a crazy job, man. And like I said, everyone's stepping away from you. I don't know, you know, and even Adams talked about it at the press conference. He goes, whenever anything happens, everybody's like, where's the sergeant? Where was the sergeant? Who's the sergeant? Right? They never ask who's the captain, where was the lieutenant, who's the sergeant. That's all they want to talk to. You know, so it really is a tough job. You know, sergeant they make the wheel spin. You know, everybody else, these deputy inspectors, 1-star, 2-star. Honestly, sergeants make the job run. You know, it is what it is. Yes, cops and detectives. I'm not shitting on you, but sergeants, as far as the supervisor rank, they're vital. You could basically get rid of a lot of other people. So yeah, at a precinct level.
I agree. I used to say that it's the cops that make the money and the revenue for the city, and it's the sergeants that run the job. There's no doubt about it. The sergeants, they run the NYPD. So shout out if you're an NYPD sergeant right now. Shout out to you. If you're actually on the list and you're about to be promoted, shout out to you. It's a whole different world, and I give my credit to them. It's a tough job, but unfortunately, if you want to make lieutenant, you have to go that route. It's the only path forward. So you got to grind. And you're right. Sometimes as a sergeant, you kind of have to be the drunk driver. You can't let everything bother you and worry about every little thing because there's just too much for you to tackle. So I think like when you talk about those guys that didn't care, to me, they kind of have that drunk driver attitude. And that's kind of where you have to be sometimes with certain things. So shout out to the NYPD sergeants. This is closure, but I don't think it's a win. 4,000 differential between you and a top paid cop. It's just not enough. You deserve more.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.